Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another broadcast. Today I want to talk about The Amazing Spider-Man number 29, or more specifically, yet another sterling example of how Peter Parker has been creatively castrated and infantilized in his own book to make other characters look good. Once again, I'm not going to give a play-by-play, but you'll piece most of it together from my commentary on a few overarching points. I'll link to Mike McNulty's review in the description field below for that. I haven't read his piece as of this broadcast, but I heard that he liked it, so you'll be able to compare and contrast. I have nothing but respect for Mike, so if we disagree on this one, then I hope I don't say anything that he takes as a shot at him. That's the last thing that I would ever do. Here's the deal. I love the look and feel and the tone of this issue. I even like the general story. I would buy this book for Stuart Immonen's artwork alone because it was actually pretty darn cool to see Spidey walk into Parker Industries late at night, look momentarily confused, and then get attacked by a bunch of Hydra agents posing as employees. I love Doc Ock as a Hydra mastermind, and it actually fits since Dan Slott once had the character say he wanted to be worse than, quote, Pol Pot, Hitler, and Genghis Khan combined. It makes sense to have a guy who nearly killed 7 billion people in a global holocaust to saddle up with Hydra. What doesn't make sense is that Peter says at one point, "Working with Hydra, though, Doc? That's sinking pretty low." Listen, Otto, I know there's good in you. I've seen it. You can still get off this crazy train. Okay, got it? I hope not, because it makes zero sense for someone who's read the book for years. Otto wanted to emulate Hitler, Dan Slott's own editorial decision, in a global holocaust involving 7 billion innocent human beings, but yet it's a, quote, step down to work for a group that simply wants to control humanity. Otto showed that he had no value for human life with a Hitlerian twist, while Hydra does value human life, albeit for its known nefarious purposes for forwarding a police state. But I digress. I'm getting off track, but the point here is twofold. Dan Slott's Amazing Spider-Man works very well if one reproduces something akin to the memory issues possessed by Dory in Finding Nemo, or they're okay with Peter Parker getting the Homer Simpson treatment, i.e. he's a bumbling idiot who is well-intentioned and guided through life by women who hold his hand, correct him when he's wrong, and generally minimize the shame that he will inevitably bring upon himself and those in his inner circle. There are two instances in this book where that happens. Dan Slott's creation, Mommy Marconi, being the perfect woman that she is, not only is a top-notch scientist with impeccable business acumen that keeps the British arm of his company afloat, but she's also a public relations wonder kid who feeds him lines for an interview on his decision to use Parker Industries to invade a sovereign nation. She warns him not to leave if something goes wrong that demands Spider-Man's attention, shakes her finger at him like a disapproving mother, and then gives him a lecture on what it means to be a CEO after the taping is cut short, despite the fact that any grown man in his shoes would have reached the exact same conclusions on his own within a week of taking the job. Similarly, Peter has an epiphany when Otto reminds him that he had nothing to do with the success of Parker Industries, obtaining his doctorate degree, and that even his webware is a knockoff of the tech Otto used during Spider-Verse. Again, none of this will matter to a person who is unfamiliar with the book or a person who can induce their own Dory-like memory problems. Dan Slott uses Mommy Marconi and Otto as vehicles to provide Peter with the very answers he, as the main character, should have been struggling with for months. But we don't get that because Dan Slott's weakness is character development. He's a situation guy. Things happen and Peter reacts, but each situation only allows for superficial dialogue that moves the plot forward, or cheesy Miley Cyrus jokes or Admiral Akbar cracks, and then eventually an aha moment is plopped in Peter's lap via the women in his life or a villain that Dan Slott likes who can make the protagonist feel like a fool. And finally, speaking of foolish, globetrotting octogenarian Aunt May is interviewed in Symkaria about the decision to use Parker Industries to invade a sovereign nation. She echoes Peter's "we put people over profits" line by saying, I'm most proud that he puts helping people first. I'd like to think that's the kind of corporate behavior the public wants. So now we see Dan Slott's preference for non sequiturs and red herrings in real life showing up in the book. A writer must always ask himself if he is being honest and truthful, and it's obvious that Dan Slott is either not truthful or he's a victim of his own self-deception. Here's why. Let's use an example from Dan's real-life politics, where he once told supporters of the business Hobby Lobby to, quote, go to Christland after they won a Supreme Court case. Imagine a Christian family company like Hobby Lobby invading Pakistan because it kind of sort of turns a blind eye to attacks on Christians and puts people on trial for their life for blasphemy if they insult Islam. What would Dan Slott have done under the Obama administration if an American Christian company invaded a Muslim nation with an atrocious human rights record and then said it was putting people before profits? Dan Slott would go nuts, and the people who used Hobby Lobby versions of the Spider-Mobile would be in orange jumpsuits before you could blink. The point is that a writer needs to think through the ramifications of what he's doing to the character. If you, as a writer, would call something unacceptable and stupid and boneheaded in real life, i.e. a publicly traded company like Apple attacking Saudi Arabia, then you better darn well not use some childlike logic as the rationale for a character like Peter Parker engaging in a Marvel Universe parallel. Real quick, because this is going long, it's sort of like the time Peter Parker's girlfriend, his flavor of the month under Dan Slott, literally tried to kill him and engaged in corporate espionage with a terrorist organization. And then afterward, Peter said he would be a, quote, hypocrite if he didn't just forget about it and allow her to keep working for the company. I'm not making this up. I'm surprised he didn't say, we put people before profits, to the corporate saboteur and would-be assassin. Or maybe it's just a case of keep your friends close and your psycho girlfriends closer. Who knows? To wrap it up, all the women in Peter's life are paragons of brilliance and kindness. The hero needs to be told what to do like he's a teenage boy, and villains mock him because he is so clueless that it didn't dawn on him that his entire company is the end result of a monomaniacal villain who just recently tried to extinguish all life on Earth. That's about it for now, but I'd like to hear what you have to say. Sound off on Amazing Spider-Man number 29, the Homer Simpson-ization of Peter Parker, Mommy Marconi acting like the mom Peter Parker never had, and anything else related to Mr. Slott in the comments section below. And as always, if you like what you've heard here, then head on over to douglasernst.blog for more coverage just like this. See you next time.